following is a Galactic Digital Studios production. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network. The NFL loses a major lawsuit. Craziness is going on in the NBA, including major trades, major draft stuff, and did LeBron just play everybody? Well, one way to find out. This is Sports Central, part of the Closing Tag Network, and I am going to do something that I haven't done in a while. I am going to go an entire podcast without mentioning the NHL, the Arizona Coyotes, the Utah Hockey Club or Yeti or whatever, or any of that past what I just did. So there you go. And don't mind the microphone being in a weird position. This is literally the only way that I can guarantee that people will actually be able to hear me. So, how are you feeling today, everybody, as we're quickly approaching the 4th of July? I would imagine the plaintiffs in this court case are feeling pretty damn good right about now. And I'll explain what I mean by that right now. A jury in U.S. District Court ordered the NFL to pay more than $4.7 billion. That's with a B. Billion dollars in damages Thursday after ruling that the league violated antitrust laws in distributing out-of-market Sunday afternoon games on the premium subscription service NFL Sunday Ticket. Now, I'm going to stop there for a second. So if you're not familiar with Sunday Ticket, basically what Sunday Ticket is, it is a marketing thing by the NFL that used to be on DirecTV, but DirecTV and the NFL kind of had a falling out, and so they took the Sunday Ticket to YouTube TV. And what the Sunday Ticket is it allows you to watch whatever team that you want to watch as long as it's out of market. And I'll get to why that's a key distinction here in a minute. As long as the team is out of market, you're able to watch whatever team you want during the NFL season. So, like, let's say, for instance, for me as a Utah native, if I wanted to watch, say, the Pittsburgh Steelers, I can go watch the Pittsburgh Steelers. Or if someone in New York wanted to watch the Seattle Seahawks, they can do that. There's a little bit of trickery in that, though. Basically, what it entails is if the market's CBS or Fox affiliate is showing that particular team in that market for that weekend, Sunday Ticket blacks that game out. So you have to go watch it on Fox or CBS or whatever it is that is showing the game. The jury awarded $4.7 billion in damages to the residential class and $96 million in damages to the commercial class. Since damages can be tripled under federal antitrust laws, the NFL could end up being liable for $14.39 billion? What the fuck? Wow. Oh my. Wow. Okay. And yes, this is the first time that I'm reading the details of this in real time. So you're getting my initial reaction to all of this. The lawsuit covered 2.4 million residential subscribers, through YouTube TV, and 48,000 businesses in the United States who paid for the package of out-of-market games from 2011 to 2022 on DirecTV. Okay, so this does not pertain to YouTube. This pertains only to what was going on with DirecTV when the NFL was having the Sunday ticket through DirecTV. Okay, that's a key distinction. The lawsuit claimed the league broke antitrust laws by selling its package of Sunday games at an inflated price. Well, I mean, you know who you're talking about, right? I mean, come on. I'm not excusing it. I'm just saying that's not exactly a surprise. The subscribers also say the league restricted competition by offering Sunday ticket only on the satellite provider. The NFL said in a statement that it will appeal the verdict, which, again, no surprise. The league said in a statement, "We are disappointed with the league's verdict today in the NFL Sunday ticket class action lawsuit. We continue to believe that our media distribution strategy, which features all NFL games broadcast on free over-the-air television in the markets of the participating teams, and national distribution of our most popular games, supplemented by many additional choices, including Red Zone, Sunday Ticket, and NFL Plus, is by far the most fan-friendly distribution model in all of sports and entertainment." I'll stop there. I mean, there's another blurb here from the league, but we'll get to that here in a minute. But let me stop there for 2 seconds, okay? Out of the 5 major sports leagues, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball, the NHL, and Major League Soccer, I will grant them this in that statement. Out of those 5, yes, the NFL has the most comprehensive and the most all-encompassing package of NFL games available to the general public. However, if you were to account WWE into that all-encompassing thing, no. Just no. Even before this whole situation went down with Netflix, I would still say no. But I continue. "We will certainly contest this decision as we believe that the class action claims in this case are baseless and without merit." Bullshit. "We thank the jury for their time and service and for the guidance." I'm sorry. Wow. Okay. "And oversight from Judge Gutierrez throughout the trial." Wow. That is a statement. That is a statement. "We thank the jury for their time and service." Oh my God. That's basically Roger Goodell's way of saying go fuck yourself. Yeah. That's a wild statement right there. But in any event, this is a huge win. Long overdue. You know, the law, the arms of justice move slowly, as they love to say. Well, this was definitely a case of the arms of justice moving slowly. I mean, 2 years later, come on. But this is a long overdue win for subscribers and for regular people who basically got robbed by the NFL Sunday ticket. And I have long contested, during the longest time, that the NFL Sunday ticket needed to be on more than just DirecTV. You know, I mean, what about the people that refuse to get satellite? Refuse to go into 2-year contracts with satellite? Basically, DirecTV and Dish and all the other, satellite providers from way back when we're operating on an anti-competition, monopolistic, predatory type of system. That was trapping people into 2-year contracts with, funny little gimmicks like this, like Sunday Ticket, and basically, screwing them over big time. I mean, I have heard horror stories over the years about DirecTV and their treatment of customers and how the Sunday Ticket was screwing them over. So to me, this is long overdue, and it is a huge win for consumers. Maybe not so much for the NFL, but I think in the long run, this is going to be a good thing. And it's going to force the NFL to really take a hard look at their current media distribution system. It's going to force the NFL to really take a look at, is having Fox and CBS in control of which market sees which games, is that really a system that you want in the year 2024 or 2026 or 2028 or 2030? That's something that Roger Goodell and the rest of the league is going to have to take a really hard look at. Because to me, if they really want to be, as the statement says, by far the most fan-friendly distribution model in all of sports entertainment. Sorry, I had to go into wrestling promoter mode there. If they really want to get to that place, especially now with, Major League Baseball doing what they're doing and the NBA basically, starting to run roughshod on their media rights deal, I think the NFL needs to take a hard look at their current model. Because to me, the current model seems to be a little bit archaic. Now, don't get me wrong. Thursday Night Football, great. Amazon Prime Video, fantastic. Sunday Night and Monday Night Football, great. But we're talking about strictly the Sunday morning and Sunday afternoon games. The bulk of the schedule. More and more and more, the NFL is starting to rely on, streaming, like Paramount Plus, like Amazon Prime Video. I think it would behoove them to take a bigger picture look at particularly market blackouts. I mean, that's basically what the whole gist of this entire lawsuit was about. It was about media blackouts. So let's say, for instance, we are in week 7-ish in the NFL season. Sunday morning, there's a slew of games that are about to show on CBS/Paramount Plus. And each game is going to be in a specific market. So you've got, let's throw names out there for a second. Let's go with the Denver Broncos and the LA Chargers. And then in that same bracket, okay, that's probably more of an afternoon game. Let's go with Cincinnati and Cleveland. And we've also got Seattle versus, let's go Pittsburgh. I don't know why I keep going back to Pittsburgh. I'm not a Steelers fan, I promise. And we've also got the Jets and the Dolphins in there somewhere. So CBS has all these games that they're showing in the specific markets. What if Paramount Plus gave you the option to view whichever game you wanted? Now, granted, that is going to completely fuck over the NFL Sunday Ticket package on YouTube TV. But I think, again, we're dealing with a system that's probably archaic and probably no longer consumer friendly. Probably, I would argue it was never consumer friendly, truly, to be honest. But a lot of questions are going to have to be asked following this lawsuit, and a lot of decisions are going to have to be made. Hard decisions. In the end, if the NFL ends up paying these damages, it's going to cost each of those 32 teams almost $450 million each. Just think about that for a minute. That is a huge blow for teams like Carolina or Houston or Tennessee or New Orleans. That's huge. That is damn near bankruptcy causing huge. So the NFL is going to have to really take a hard look at everything from this. I don't know if I can put into words just how monumental this jury decision is for the NFL and for consumers. But moving along to another sport, the NBA. How's everybody feeling about the draft? How did your team do? I know that the Jazz did okay. Granted, I still think that Cody Williams is probably not going to be long for the world. I know everybody, like on Facebook and everything, they all like to say, well, Danny Ainge had his eyes on Cody Williams from the get-go. Well, I mean, that may be true. But it still doesn't shake the feeling that I feel like Cody Williams will probably be traded for a couple draft picks and a popcorn maker if given the opportunity. But enough about Danny Ainge. Let's go to other GMs. So, even before the draft started on the 27th, we had some action going on. The Washington Wizards ended up trading, and I butcher this name every single time, so I apologize in advance. Danny Avdija. I know the J is silent. I just don't know if the V is silent. It's Avdija. Anyway, that guy is going from Washington to Portland. And the Trailblazers will be sending the Wizards Malcolm Brogdon, the 14th overall pick, which was used to pick up Carlton Carrington, a first-round pick in 2029, a second-round pick in 2028, and a second-round pick in 2030. So what are my initial thoughts? My initial thoughts are this. And I said it the other day. I think this is a good move by Portland. Malcolm Brogdon was not going to do much more for you on the bench in Portland. He just wasn't. You've already got Scoot Henderson. Scoot Henderson is starting to come into his own as a point guard in the league. It's time. It's time to let the bird spread its wings. And this frees up more playing time for Henderson. This frees up more playing time for Anthony Simons. Let the young backcourt do its thing. And Avdija, who plays forward, he's going to fit in just fine into that front court. Now, this does raise questions about the future of Jeremy Grant. I Don't know if Denny, I'm just going to call him Denny. I'm not going to worry too much about trying to pronounce his last name. I don't think that he's going to be a starter level player for Portland. I just don't. He was barely a starting player for Washington. So could I see him coming off the bench and providing some quality minutes behind Jeremy Grant and DeAndre Ayton? Yes, I do. As for Washington, this is a decent pickup for, let's be honest, a role player coming off the bench. Brogdon's going to come in. He's going to immediately start at point guard for Washington. It's something that Washington should have done from the get-go instead of trading Chris Paul for Jordan Poole, but that's another story altogether. But Brogdon, Poole, and Kyle Kuzma is going to provide a solid three-man lineup. That's not going to win you much in the Eastern Conference. It'll get you to the 11th seed, maybe. It'll at least ensure that you're not the second worst team in the league. Maybe. Depends on how much gas is left in the tank for Brogdon. But it should be fine. I think it's a good move for both. Next up, and I'm not going to go into the trades where it's like, oh, you get this draft pick and you get this draft pick. So I'm going to skip this one because that's basically what that is. This one, however, I won't skip. The New York Knicks traded the 24th overall pick, which was then used to pick up Keyshawn George, to the Washington Wizards. Man, Washington was busy the other night. In exchange, New York receives the 26th overall pick, which I'll get to the 26th overall pick here in a minute, and the 51st overall pick. Then New York flips that, sends the 26th overall pick to the Oklahoma City Thunder for five future second round picks. So, the reason I'm emphasizing the 26th overall pick, aside from the fact that it was used to pick up Dylan Jones, Weber State represent. Sorry, had to go into full-on Ogden mode there. In case you don't know, Weber State University in Ogden, Utah. Yeah. This is literally the first time anybody outside of Damian Lillard has been picked this high in the draft from Weber State. So, it's a pretty big moment. So, aside from that, the reason I'm emphasizing this is the fact that New York took the 24th overall pick and turned it into 6 second-round picks. Now, you may not think second-round picks are very important, but considering the New York Knicks just barely, and I'll get to Mikal Bridges here in a minute, they just barely sent a boatload of draft picks to the Nets. I'm not finding that here. What's going on? Well, we'll get to that later. But anyway. They sent a boatload of picks to Brooklyn. So they had to do something. They had to do something to shore that lack of draft depth. So they ended up pulling this trade. Oklahoma, as we know, has got draft picks for days. So it's not like they're going to be out much. course, that brings me to Mikal Bridges. Mikal Bridges from the Brooklyn Nets was traded to the Knicks, I think, the day before the draft. And in exchange, are you ready for this? The Knicks sent five future first-round picks and a pick swap. And a second-round pick. And just to make salaries match, they also sent Bojan Bogdanovic. Bogey represent. Just let that sink in for a minute. 5 first-round picks. Basically, aside from players having to match salaries and whatnot, this is the exact same package that Minnesota sent to the Utah Jazz in exchange for Rudy Gobert. Minnesota sent 5 future first-round picks to Utah for Rudy Gobert. Do the Knicks view Mikal Bridges in the same vein as Rudy Gobert? That's the question you have to ask yourself. Because otherwise, if not, this was a complete fleecing. Now, I break down the draft picks. New York sends 4 unprotected first-rounders in 2025, 2027, 2029, and 2031. A protected first-round pick in 2025, which they acquired from the Milwaukee Bucks. And an unprotected 2028 second or first-round pick swap, along with the 2025 second-round pick. Now, I have sung the praises of the Knicks over the last several weeks on this podcast. And I could see this working out for New York. I could see this potentially being a major coup. But only if Johnny Bryant is still on the team. There's a lot of questions right now about Johnny Bryant and whether or not he's going to be sticking around. If he does, this is a major win for New York. Because then he could take a Mikal Bridges and he could take his game from about here to about here. The same way he's done with Jalen Brunson. The same way he's done with Julius Randle. The same way he's done with OG Anunoby. The same way he's done with Dante DiVincenzo. And keep in mind, DiVincenzo and Brunson are former teammates of Mikal Bridges from their days playing at Villanova. So the camaraderie is already there. The team chemistry is already there. All you have to do now is build them up. So like I said, if the player development staff is going to stick around long term for the Knicks, this is a huge, huge win. But it's also a huge win for Brooklyn, because they get 5 unprotected first-round picks and a protected pick. So this is a pretty big win. In all likelihood, Milwaukee is not going to do bad enough that they're going to need to protect the pick, I don't think. But that was not the only trade that the Nets made the day before the draft. They also sent a future first-round pick and, actually no, 2 future first-round picks to the Houston Rockets for, I think it was like 2 future first-round. I don't have all the details here because this is before that trade went down. Basically, the Nets got their picks back from when they made the deal for, I think it was Kevin Durant. No, it's James Harden. I remember now. Houston got their picks back from when they dealt James Harden to Philadelphia, and the Nets got their picks back from when they dealt for James Harden from Philadelphia, in what I feel is still to this day the worst trade second worst trade in Nets history. But in fairness to KG and Pierce, they at least showed up for work. But moving along, the Minnesota Timberwolves were busy as well. They ended up trading a 2030 first round pick swap, which would be top seed protected. So if they end up getting the first pick overall in the 2030 draft, which I don't see happening unless Anthony Edwards decides to jump ship or is traded, along with the 2031 unprotected first round pick, to the San Antonio Spurs for the 8th overall pick, which was used to pick up Rob Dillingham. My thoughts are that I don't know enough about Rob Dillingham to make an assessment. We're just going to have to wait and see how he does on the court. But considering that they did a really good job of protecting that 2030 first rounder, that's a pretty decent haul for both teams. San Antonio's got 2 more first round picks that they can use to kind of build a solid team around Victor Wembanyama, which right now that has to be the goal, both short term and long term. They have to start building a team around this guy, because you've got, and I hate to go into media hyperbole mode here, but you've got arguably the future face of the league on your team. Do not squander this kid's potential. Do not squander his good years by surrounding him with crap. And I think Greg Popovich realizes that and is doing everything he can to try and, build a good team around him. That's another pick for pick. Here we go. 3-team deal. I love 3 teams deals. Absolutely love them, especially when it considers one of my favorite draft assets or trade assets in NBA history, which I'll get to in a minute. The Atlanta Hawks trade AJ Griffin. This will not be the only time I mention the Hawks, by the way. So there's another trade going down with Atlanta. To the Houston Rockets. The Houston Rockets then send the 44th overall pick, who they selected, Pele Larson, I believe his name is. I, again, apologize for butchering anybody's names unintentionally. To the Miami Heat. The Miami Heat then send the 43rd overall pick, Nikola Jurisic. Again, butchering names, I'm sure. To Atlanta. Atlanta also sends, here's my favorite part, cash considerations. We're in 2024, and we're still sending cash in trades. That will never not be funny to me. I don't know enough about any of the players other than AJ Griffin to make an assessment, but I will say AJ Griffin's going to be a solid pickup as long as he doesn't pull a Victor Oladipo and not bother showing up for work or getting injured or whatever. It's a solid pickup for Houston. I imagine AJ Griffin's going to provide a better, overall presence for the team than Pele Larson. With all due respect to Pele Larson. Another 4-team trade involving draft picks and cash considerations, which I won't get into, but I will say that the Golden State Warriors ended up picking up Lindy Waters III, whoever the fuck that is, from Oklahoma City in that 4-team trade. Cash considerations also made its way into another draft trade involving the Knicks and the Mavericks. Man, New York was really busy the other night. That's like the 5th trade I've seen with the New York Knicks involved. More draft pick swaps, more draft pick swaps, more draft pick swaps. That's weird. Oh, yep, that's the same trade. Never mind. For some reason, the NBA website is listing certain trades multiple times, but here's one of the big ones. The Toronto Raptors. You know that they're going into full-on rebuild mode when they're starting to trade away good players. The Sacramento Kings will be receiving Jalen McDaniels. And say what you will about Jalen McDaniels. He is a good player. Given the right seasoning and given the right training, he can be a good player. Maybe not a starter, but a good player. In return, Sacramento is sending Toronto Raptors Davion Mitchell, not related to Donovan Mitchell. I learned that the hard way. Sasha Vezenkov, again, butchering names, I'm sorry, and the 45th overall pick, which was used for Jamal Sheed. You had to know the writing was on the wall for Davion Mitchell in Sacramento. You had to know it. You had to know it. There was no way he was going to be sticking around much longer. And you know, there's a lot going on as far as Toronto rebuilding, Toronto, trying to shuffle pieces here and there. They just barely signed Scotty Barnes to a big 4-year contract extension. I mean, we're talking 9 digits. $120 million for 4 years of Scotty Barnes. So they're taking all of their Scotty Barnes chips. Scotty Barnes is the future of the Toronto Raptors and pushing them all into the middle of the table. They are all in on this guy being their franchise guy. And Davion Mitchell's going to provide some solid point guard play. He is a little bit undersized at the point guard position. I think I'm taller than he is. That's saying something. But I don't know how well this is going to work out. Now for Jalen McDaniels, this is going to work out great because he's going to be playing behind, Domantas Sabonis. He's going to be playing behind, that front court. He's going to be just fine coming off the bench for that team. But this is the other big trade. This is probably bigger than the Mikal Bridges trade, if we're being honest. And only because of what it signifies, to me anyway. The New Orleans Pelicans. You ready for this? The New Orleans Pelicans have traded Larry Nance Jr., Dyson Daniels, their first round pick next year that they're getting from the Los Angeles Lakers, which is probably going to be in the mid-range. at this point, and a 2027 first round pick, which will be, I think, like either the best or the worst between Milwaukee and New Orleans, to the Atlanta Hawks for DeJounte Murray. DeJounte Murray is going to the Pelicans. That's massive. On a lot of fronts, that is massive. Now, say what you want about the experiment of pairing DeJounte Murray with Trae Young and how disastrous that was. I don't fault DeJounte Murray. I don't think Trae Young is a superstar. I just don't. He had the one good year in which he took the Hawks to the conference finals many moons ago. And he just hasn't been the same player since. He just hasn't. He had one good year. And if you look at all the metrics, if you look at all the stats, you look at everything, even the optics, watching him on the court, you can see he is a major defensive liability. And you're seeing it with the Hawks, year after year after year after year. Defensively, they're getting worse. You would think hiring a defensive-minded coach like Quinn Snyder to come in and shape up that defense would make it better. Much like you would think bringing in Monte Williams would make the Detroit Pistons a better team. Now I'll get to Detroit here in a minute too. But if anything, it's gotten worse. It has gotten worse in Atlanta. And, trading guys like John Collins, trading guys like, now DeJounte Murray, trading everybody that isn't a defensive liability is just making things worse. And I don't know how much longer Quinn Snyder is going to be in Atlanta, to be perfectly honest with you. I don't see him lasting much longer. There's so many good coaching candidates out there right now, and Quinn Snyder has already proven twice now that he's just not a good head coach. He just isn't. And I hate saying that about the guy because I love the guy. I love the fact that everybody compares him to a Bond villain or Tom Holland on crack on social media. But the facts are the facts. He just isn't a good head coach. But this is a good pickup for New Orleans because now you've got a lot of flexibility. You've got a lot of options. Keep in mind, Brandon Ingram is going into the last year of his contract in about 36 hours. He's going into the last year of his contract. And there's no guarantee he's re-signing. Right now, there's no indication that he wants to re-sign. So what do you do if you're the Pelicans? Do you trade him now and get something in return? Do you pull off a trade like this to shore up more positioning on the starting lineup in the event that he does end up bolting? Or you just let him bolt and then suffer for another 2 or 3 years and then watch as Zion Williamson pulls an Anthony Davis and longs to go play in Los Angeles. I mean, really, that's what you're looking at. So picking up DeJounte Murray is huge. Now you've got a guy that, at worst, can come into one of the two starting guard positions and play alongside CJ McCollum, Zion Williamson, and best case scenario, Brandon Ingram. you've got a solid starting lineup right there. You've got solid shooting. You've got solid playmaking. DeJounte Murray is great at, creating shots and creating plays for others. He's excellent in that department. And again, he's going to shore up a lot of the defensive deficiencies for New Orleans, the same way that he was supposed to do that with Atlanta. And by the way, going back to San Antonio, how smart does Greg Popovich look right now? Not only did he luck his way into getting Victor Wembanyama, but he also was able to flip DeJounte Murray for a slew of first-round picks that are probably going to wind up being lottery picks if this keeps up. They already had the 4th and 8th overall picks this year, and then sent the 8th overall pick for more draft picks from Minnesota. That's the reason why I brought up the Minnesota trade. San Antonio is building a super team, as I like to call it, the right way. They've already got the first piece in place, the masterpiece, the main cornerstone in Victor Wembanyama. Now they just need to start bringing in more pieces to build around him. And they did end up getting, I think it was like a point guard from UConn. I'd have to take a look, but the guy's name is Stephen Castle. Yeah, UConn. Point guard from UConn, Stephen Castle. They've already got him. And if they can get those two, Castle and Wembanyama, to do the Stockton-Malone pick and roll, still the best point pick and roll in the history of the game. Come at me. If he can get those two to do a similar pick and roll type system, I think that's going to be massive for San Antonio. And then all you got to do is just use draft picks to build your pieces around those two. But there was one other thing that I wanted to bring up. And then I'm going to save my thoughts on the new collective bargaining agreement and all this, that, and the other for another podcast. Let's talk about the Lakers. You already knew the minute that you saw that there was going to be a new podcast, Sports Central podcast, on your feed. You already knew where I was going with this. I'm going to play conspiracy theorist. You ready? Okay. I think the whole drama over the last several weeks, the will he or won't he with LeBron and opting out of his contract, and Rich Paul saying that he's a free agent, and LeBron saying I'm hands off on the Lakers head coaching search, and the Lakers then going out and getting a guy who just so happens to be good buddies with LeBron James, and then just so happened to land Bronny James with the 55th overall pick, the fourth to last pick in the draft. All of this seems a little too perfect, doesn't it? Just a little bit. Am I crazy, or is it you two? Well, I'm going to explain why. Rich Paul. See, the New York Knicks weren't the only ones that were busy on draft night. Rich Paul made a number of phone calls to teams like the Celtics and the Pistons and the Warriors and the Knicks and the Pacers and the Spurs and the Grizzlies and this and that. Pretty much everybody that had a second round pick. He made some phone calls. And the gist of those phone calls was the following. If you draft Bronny James, he will not play for you. He pulled a Kobe Bryant. Here's the problem. Bronny James is not Kobe Bryant. LeBron James is barely Kobe Bryant. A lot of Lakers fans would argue that he's not even in that league. So let's dial it back a bit. Bronny James may actually turn out to be a decent player. Maybe. I'm going to give him credit with this. He's coming in at a perfect time. The NBA is just barely, instituting this new CBA, which I'll get into at another time. So there's going to be more opportunities for guys like Bronny James. And guys like, let's pull up some names here, Cam Christie and Antonio Reeves and, Cal Filipowski, which I'm not going to get into that whole thing. I'm not worried about it. Juan Nunez and Isaiah Collier and Dylan Jones and Keyshawn George. It's providing more opportunities for those guys to get more money. If this were the wild, wild west, like it was not even 5 years ago, Bronny James would be lucky to be getting $1 million. If we're being perfectly honest. But this new collective bargaining agreement is making it so that guys on the lower rungs are going to get more opportunities. Now, I don't suspect Bronny James is going to get there overnight. I don't suspect Bronny James is even going to get there in the first 3 years. It's equally possible that Bronny James is going to find his way out of the league entirely in those 3 years. But if he, unlike Daddy, is coachable, can pick up on things, can pick up on little nuances here and there, and can actually apply himself to get better and to improve, and he overcomes his health issues, namely the heart defect. I'm still worried about that. I'm not trying to be facetious, and I'm not trying to joke about that. I really do not like where that's going. But if he's coachable, unlike Daddy, and he's able to apply himself, I think he's going to be a serviceable role player coming off the bench. The problem is Daddy. LeBron James orchestrated this entire thing, this entire offseason, and forgive me if I sound like, what's his name, off of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, with the crazy fucking billboard behind me, Forgive me if I start sounding like that guy. LeBron James orchestrated everything meticulously. He orchestrated the Bronny James situation meticulously. He orchestrated his pending free agency meticulously. I am willing to bet $3,000 that I don't have on the fact that LeBron James is going to re-sign with the Lakers. I don't see him going anywhere. And the reason is everything was orchestrated meticulously. ESPN throwing out the possibility that he might be going to the Sixers, or he might be going here, or he might be going there, or he might be doing this, he might be doing that. He might be following Bronny wherever he gets drafted. Him saying he wants to play with his son. Him saying, I'm keeping my hands clean of the head coaching search. And then it just so happens that the Lakers head coaching search brings in the one guy that LeBron started a podcast with. Never mind the fact that he has zero coaching experience on the collegiate or pro level, not even assistant coach. Everything lined up too perfectly. There's a wise saying, you can believe in coincidences all you want, but too many coincidences falling in place at the same time, no. Doesn't work that way. LeBron James has taken the Los Angeles Lakers franchise hostage. I honestly will not be shedding a tear for that organization. They knew what they were getting themselves into. And if they didn't know, they should have known. But again, like I said several podcast episodes back, what else are they going to do? Suck for the next 4 years? That doesn't exactly strike the Lakers' MO, does it? I don't think they're going to do that. And I love that they're throwing out trade ideas now for superstars. I mean, I've heard ideas for Donovan Mitchell. I've heard for Zach LaVine. I've heard ideas for Trae Young. Honestly, if I'm, I would love to see Trae Young in Los Angeles. I really would. I really would. Let him go to LA. Let him tank that team's defensive rating the way he has with Atlanta. Go right ahead. Go right ahead. Here you go. Here you go. We'll only take a couple draft picks and maybe, 3 or 4 players. Go ahead. Here you go. Have fun. Bye-bye. Please keep Donovan Mitchell as far away from that hot garbage as possible. I will gladly see him go to the Knicks over that shit. I really would. I will gladly see him go to Miami 10 times over going to the Lakers once. I will gladly watch him get traded to the Brooklyn Nets before I watch him go to the Lakers. Yeah, this is the equivalent of Aaron Rodgers going to the Dallas Cowboys and then demanding that the Cowboys, hire the coach that he wants and draft the players that he wants and orchestrate everything. Do you really honestly believe that the Indiana Pacers, with 2 second-round picks back-to-back, were not going to draft Bronny James over Tristan Newton and Enrique Freeman? With all due respect to Tristan Newton and Enrique Freeman, their dads are not potential NBA free agents that could pretty much shape an entire franchise. Their dads are not going to justify the Pacers using what little cap space they do have to bring in said free agents. I really hate that they do this shit. I really do. And it's not just Rich Paul, and it's not just the Lakers. I mean, the Lakers have done it before with Kobe. But I've seen it happen so many times. I've seen it happen with Eli Manning in the NFL draft. I saw it happen. What was another one that was going on? There was one other one. I can't remember the name of him now. But this whole, I refuse to play in insert town here. I mean, there was a lot of talk going around about Caleb Williams saying that shit. And then when the Bears finally did draft him, he was like, nope, I'm okay with this. I never said any of that stuff. And it's this big market mentality that you have to pair the big stars with the big markets. That's not what the draft is about. The draft is supposed to be about parity. The draft is supposed to be about, teams taking who they feel is the best fit for their team. Do you imagine if Victor Wembanyama told everybody that was within earshot that he didn't want to go to San Antonio? Could you imagine if, and I really hate that I'm going to be butchering some of these names. Zachary Risacher, like, could you imagine if he went around and said, I don't want to play in Atlanta. Fuck those guys. As my phone is going off. I knew I forgot something. Do you imagine if he went around and saying, I don't want to go play in Atlanta. Fuck those guys. It would be a shit show. It would be a circus. This whole thing was a circus from the get-go. From the day that I first even brought up the idea months ago. And it's just as much a shit show now, if not more so, than it was back then. And I'm sorry, but the Lakers are going to get exactly what they deserve from all of it. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I've rambled on long enough. I've gone on for over an hour now. So we're going to wrap it up here. Like I mentioned, the next Sports Central podcast, I'll dive more into the CBA and, how that's going to affect things going forward. But if you're interested in leaving a review, reviews are open on Spotify. Donation button or donation link, whatever you want to call. I'm giving my left hand a rest here. Is in the upper right hand corner of any of the closing tag websites. We are in the process of making a few minor changes to those websites, but no promises. If you are watching this on Facebook, like the video, share with friends, comment. If you're watching this on YouTube, like the video, subscribe to the channel, comment, hit the bell for notifications. That way, you're notified every time a new video drops. And I want to thank everyone for listening, for liking, for downloading, for donating, for doing everything you can to help support this endeavor. Your efforts are not going unnoticed. So thank you. And until the next time, which again will probably be in a few days, remember to include your closing tags. Thank you.
This has been a Galactic Digital Studios production.